but at the heart of it was her own process. Do you know what I mean? And you know, she worked very hard on Marilyn's voice, but very hard on Marilyn's inner life, her psychology, and very hard on Marilyn's body language. And one of the things that she worked with our choreographer Jane Gibson in London on that little dance that Marilyn does from The Prince and the Showgirl. And by learning that dance, she was learning how Marilyn moved as well. And she would say things to me like, you know, that Marilyn had adopted a lot of her famous body language as part of her own brand.
When she became Marilyn, she said, "I'll be her now."
Yes, but you know, the wiggle and all those things that, you know, that the thing, you know, all those little things that the things that Marilyn adopted. And once Michelle sort of worked that out, it didn't seem so tough for her to adopt them in order to become Marilyn.
Gentlemen, it is my special pleasure to introduce a woman who clearly needs no introduction. A very great actress on her first trip to London.
Marilyn, is it true you wear nothing in bed but perfume?
Oh. Darling, as I'm in England, let's say I sleep in nothing but Yardley's lavender.
I long to see her.
This story describes a miracle.
Miss Monroe?
Marilyn is not ready.
Excuse my horrible face.
A few days in my life when a dream came true.
Were you frightened of me, Colin?
No.
Good, because I like you.
Colin, is everything okay? Miss Monroe had some large packages she needed handled.
What is Marilyn doing with my third assistant?
Surprise!
Get back in! Colin!
I have something in my eye.
I can't see anything.
Be careful not to get in too deep, son.
Marilyn Monroe fancying you. Come on.
She breaks hearts. She will break yours.
I wouldn't buy the little girl lost act if I were you. I think Marilyn knows exactly what she's doing.
All people ever see is Marilyn Monroe.
What must it be like to be the most famous woman on earth? You could quit this. Forget Marilyn Monroe. Forget Hollywood. But let it all go.
First love is such sweet despair, Colin. Shall I be her? Who? Marilyn.
They are very supportive of us. And that house, Saltwood Castle, the family still living. And they were on the set and really were very excited to see Eddie. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't like consulting them, but you know, I'm very pleased to have their support. Very grateful for their support. And we showed it to them for the first time only last week, actually, and they seem to like it.
How much was left out of the film?
From what?
From the book.
I don't really remember now, because you know, it starts as a book, then it becomes a script, then it becomes something we shoot, and then it becomes something we edit. I mean, I'm not trying to be glib about it. Essentially, we are telling... Well, it's the two books, actually. It's the first diary, and then the second book, My Week with Marilyn, and we sort of combined them together. And our job was to tell Colin's version of this story. But, I mean, honestly, you know, things evolved, you know what I mean, and lines get cut and whatever. But it's essentially that story, you know.
Have he waited to write that second memoir after maybe her family?
I don't know. I mean, someone asked me that before, and I can't remember the chronology of that.
Arthur Miller had died.
Yeah.
Maybe.
What year did Arthur die?
I don't know. I'd say about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I should know the answer to that. I don't. But it was certainly something he you know, he obviously waited to tell the second story. There's no question of that. But I don't know, to be honest, what the reason for that was.
Well, it was so intimate. I mean, I think we had saved it for something.
Yeah, correct. That's correct.
For some reason. I mean,
yeah, that's correct.
But the first story was obviously fascinating, just to be the guy that he was on the set like that and get that experience. But then to take it to the next level, I didn't know about it. I hadn't known about his first book, so the whole thing, that's fascinating.
Yeah. And it is a sort of love letter to the magic of cinema and a sort of love letter to the specialness of actors, you know, the courage and the the talent of actors, and that appealed to me. And so that really was my starting point, falling in love with these books rather than it being a Marilyn story. Do you know what I mean? But obviously it becomes a Marilyn story. But that wasn't, the first attraction. I didn't start this as a Marilyn freak, wanting to tell a Marilyn story. Yeah. No, but I mean there are Marilyn freaks. I'm fully aware that had Michelle not had the courage to sign on, we would have had no film. And as I to repeat what I say, seeing her, become this character was truly thrilling. And the fact that people seem to be liking it so much is even more thrilling, actually.
I wouldn't have thought of her. I don't know why it surprised me, and then to see what she did with the role.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely, just stunned me.
Did you have to pad her costumes to make her look?
There was all kinds of cinema magic, some of which I knew about and some of which I didn't.
Well, they do that all the time.
I know.
And we had Jenny Sherkle, this magnificent, very experienced makeup designer who worked very closely with Michelle, who's a very brilliant woman in her own right. And so there was a big team around us all. All part of it. And it was funny because whenever Marilyn came on the set, which was most days, there was a sort of, I used to call it some Marilyn madness, because everybody, makeup, costume, DP, me, Michelle, everyone sort of went into a sort of frenzy, because we knew we had to deliver, and thank God for Michelle's sort of focus and concentration, because she was able to sort of cut through all of that and just focus on what the scene was about and what the requirement of that day was, So, I always knew I was lucky to get her, but I didn't know how lucky I was.
And was Kenneth Branagh always the idea for Laurence Olivier?
He was, because, as you know, his name has been associated with Olivier's all the way through, and then because he was doing post-production on Thor, the film he directed whilst we were doing it, so initially he wasn't available. But then date shifted and suddenly he became available, and so that was, equally thrilling, frankly, because he just brings such, amazing experience. He's such a great actor, and just this intelligence. So his notes on the script and his understanding and empathy for the agony and ecstasy of being a director, and a director who directs himself. It just was so right. And I just love the comedy he brings to Olivier. But there's also a sense of again, warmth and a sympathy for the man, do you know what I mean? And I'm just astonished by that performance.
And it actually started Olivier's new career too.
This didn't, but
the next he did go after the Raw.
Yeah, and I think that was Miller's influence in getting him to take John Osborne and Look Back in Anger and the Royal Court Theatre seriously, and that did rejuvenate his career in the way he thought Prince and the Showgirl and working with Marilyn was going to.
Was there anything in the movie that you would have liked to have kept that you had cut off?
Do you mean, did I cut anything I wish I hadn't cut? No. I mean, I can't remember if I already said this or not, but there is a version of the film, on the page, and the version you shoot, and then the version of the edit. But we've had a long, detailed editing process, and I'm really, really pleased with how it's ended up.
I am too.
And Vivian Lee too was just absolutely.
She was amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, but that's a really, really important. I was lucky to get Julia because it's tough getting. They're such iconic parts, but comparatively small parts. But she just brings an empathy and an understanding to that, and it's a really important element to the film, the Vivian Lee thing, because she had so recently been hailed as the most beautiful woman in the history of the world, Vivian Lee, Scarlett O'Hara. And they're still beautiful at 43. She's being made to feel like she's past it and an old has-been, Right. And, I like to think that, should Marilyn have lived till she was 43, she may have felt the same, So that's that thing about how ephemeral it is, and, you don't know how much of Marilyn's mystique and allure is in fact the sad early her sad early demise.
Have you read any other books about Marilyn? What kind of research did you do before?
There's so much. I mean, while we were shooting, there was a new book being published seemingly every week. You know, and it's, I mean, there is. I think sometimes there are hundreds of books about Marilyn. So, you know, we definitely dipped into all of them. A lot of them have their sort of, you couldn't help but turn to 1956. Do you know what I mean? Rather than read the whole book. You know, but and they contradict each other, a lot of them, and have different things. But you can sort of build up an essential truth by reading them.
Did you talk to anybody who had done The Prince and the Showgirl? Is there anybody?
I mean, I really regret not talking to Jack Cardiff before he passed away, because he did live till quite recently, and he was the DP and had a special, affectionate relationship with Marilyn. But I wasted that opportunity. But we did talk to Elaine, who was did the continuity on it, and she saw the film last week, which is great. And she was 30 in 1956. As was Marilyn, and I asked her what Marilyn was like. She said she was like a little girl, and you can't help but feel the sort of, the fate of our lives. You know, that these two women were both 30 in 1956, and one was to live a few years, and one is still alive more than 50 years later. You know, it's a strange thing, isn't it?
Any other questions?
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know, outside of My Week with Marilyn, I like to ask this of any director that I ever meet, what is it like that you're watching outside of your own stuff? Obviously you've been editing and doing a lot of work, but have you seen anything this year that you've really enjoyed as far as...
I haven't been seeing too many of this year's films, but I'm a huge film fan.
Oh, of course.
I did see The Descendants, which I enjoyed very much.
I'm looking forward to that, next week.
But I think that actually two films I often reference in relation to this, not this year's films, but young American filmmakers' films, are Lost in Translation, two sort of random people coming into each other's orbit and having this big impact on each other, and then after a few intense days going their separate ways. That was, that's very much the story of our film too. And also Almost Famous, the Cameron Crowe film, about a young man ambitious to work in this exciting world who gets the magic golden ticket to work in this world. And that is in this film too.
Yes, very good.
So what do you plan to do next?
I don't know. I mean, I've waited a long time to make this film, and it's very exciting to be doing events like this, meeting people, talking about the film, hoping to encourage people to come to the film.
It's your film debut.
It is my first film. Yeah, it is my first film, and a film I very passionately believe. And what's been exciting is that I know there are lots of the films that people admire and all that, but watching it with an audience, it's so clear that people are enjoying it as well, and the amount of laughter is a very pleasant surprise. I mean, I didn't know it would be like that, and so it's enjoyable to watch it with an audience for that reason. There is a lot of poignancy in the film and an excitement around Michelle's brilliant performance, but there's also a lot of fun in the film, and I'm glad that audiences seem to be finding that.
So you're taking this around the country?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
You expecting an Oscar nomination?
I don't know about anything like that. But, I guess the thing I would say to that is, I'm a fan of actors, and so grateful I got this cast to do this, and the fact that people seem to be liking their work makes me hope they get the recognition they deserve.
Well, I think several should, not just her.
Yeah.
Branagh, it's several.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're leading. Eddie, how do you pronounce his last
name? Eddie Redmayne. Yeah. And I wish I could claim to have discovered him, because I know to a lot of people he's a new face, but he's not. I mean, he won a Tony Award on Broadway last year for Red, and has quite a good film and TV, a very good film and TV resume. But I knew I wanted him for this part. He not only because he went to Eton, like Colin Clark had done, but because he's just such a wonderful...
New to American audience, at least to movie audiences.
He was really good in The Good Shepherd, Yellow Handkerchief.
And Saving Grace.
Right.
I mean, he's done something.
Okay, I think that.
Is it Saving Grace, the Julianne Moore film?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's for someone his age, he's done a lot of work, actually. Yeah.
How old is he?
Late 20s.
Oh, he's late. Okay.
Yeah.
He's not 23.
Yeah. He does play it very well.
He plays it.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe him.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you.